I'm Jan Kowalski with Green Slate I Incorporated, and this is a live interactive show on KNTV Channel 21. We're also streaming live at kntv.org/hotline. And for the next 25 minutes, you are more than welcome to call in and participate and join the discussion, even if you have any comments, questions, or concerns. The number to reach me is indicated on the screen there. It's 312, and if my eyes show right, 738-1060. So please call in and join the discussion. Now, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Green Slate I Incorporated, my sponsor. Green Slate I Incorporated is a not-for-profit entity, and their sole purpose is designed to assist ex-convicts. They have programs including reentry programs. They've got children's camps, including Kirby's Kids Camps. They also have reentry programs, and I'm missing one here. Community service programs through the clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County. And they also have another program called Feeding the Families of Inglewood. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about Green Slate I, please call in with your questions, because they are dedicated to improving the lives of ex-convicts. And I'm Jan Kowalski. You might not have heard of me, but that's Kowalski. And yes, I am Polish. And to help you remember the name Kowalski, I have my little cartoon figure. Let me show you to him. Let's see if we can see him. That's a little koala, and he's on his skis. And it's the koala on skis because my name is Kowalski. And to help you further, just remember that I'm 100% qualified to be here. And you could also call me Kawasaki if you like motorcycles. But really, just try to remember my little koala guy there, and he's having fun on his skis. Now again, this is a live interactive program, and you're more than welcome to join the discussion by calling in at the number on your screen. Now tonight we were supposed to be joined by guests, but apparently he's running late. So let me just jump into my favorite discussion, which is the judges of the Circuit Court of Cook County. As ex-convicts, we're always concerned about our constitutional rights and making sure that we are having our case presented before a fair and impartial tribunal. Now, this goes way back to the revolutionary times when you could be deprived of your life, personal property, your possessions, without due process of law, just by King George sending his redcoats in and just taking your chickens, for instance. So when our founding fathers determined these fundamental principles, one of them is due process, and that means that there have to be an orderly administration of justice. And for this, we have not just redcoats coming in to grab your chickens, but we've got judges. And there are certain judges in the Circuit Court of Cook County that are elected and certain judges that are appointed. And one of Green Slate's new initiatives that hopefully you'll be seeing on the ballot this coming March is the Independent Judiciary Amendment to the Illinois Constitution. We're seeking that there be only so many number of associate judges. And let me explain further. Circuit judges are appointed by the voters of the Circuit Court of Cook County, and every 4 to 6 years, depending upon which office they have, they are required to submit themselves to the voters for retention. And any person who's voted that's listening to this knows when you see that voting ballot in the March primary that there are an extensive number of maybe 60 or more judges that are seeking retention. And even me, even though I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in Illinois, I'm not familiar with all the attorneys that are running for retention. So it's most of the time, most of the people just gloss things over and just hit retain. But let me tell you why that's not a good idea and why you have to take some research into whether you want to vote for these particular judges. I've got personal experience in front of any number of judges in the Circuit Court of Cook County during my practice of law. And there are certain judges that I just think that they're bad judges. That's my personal opinion. I don't think they should be retained. So when I see their name on the ballot, I vote to not retain them. However, a lot of people who are not familiar with the justice system don't know whether these are good judges or bad judges. There's any number of websites out there, such as the Robe Probe, which seeks to essentially rate judges. And I recommend that you go online to Google and see if you can find any such service that allows you to rate the quality of judges that's before you. Now, let me give you a little side note here. we've got an appellate court justice for the first district, and her name is Justice Aurelia Puchinsky, and she's one of my countrymen, being of Polish heritage. And unfortunately, she's been rated not qualified by, I'm fairly positive, just about every judicial evaluation that she's come before. Notwithstanding that, she's still an Illinois appellate court justice, and she's up for election every 6 years. So I'm urging the voters to do research on the judges to determine whether they should be retained or not. Now, let me go back to what I was talking about. There's a difference between associate judges and circuit judges, and most people don't know it. Matter of fact, I didn't even know it as a lawyer. I just recently found this out. Circuit judges have to go before the voters, and that way, if they're a crooked judge, bad judge, sloppy judge, just lazy judge, the voters can vote them out and elect not to retain them. The other kind of judges which we have, those are called associate judges. I personally call them handshake judges. In other words, they have to have the secret handshake to someone or some committee that appoints them. They're essentially appointed judges. Think of friends of friends. Do you want to have someone deciding your case that's a friend of a friend? Now, we've got a Supreme Court rule that limits that these associate justices or these secret handshake justices, that they cannot hear criminal matters. Unfortunately, this Supreme Court rule is being flouted in any number of circuits, including the, and let me just come right out and say it, right out in Bridgeview. There's an associate judge who's hearing criminal matters, and they're felony criminal matters. And this is of grave concern to my sponsors, the Green Slate I Incorporated, because there's a Supreme Court rule that mandates that only circuit court judges can hear felony matters. We want people, judges, that are deciding felonies to be accountable to the voters. Now, if you're an associate judge, you're not accountable to the voters because you don't have to run for election. You just have to make sure that you remember the secret handshake you have. So one of the Green Slate initiatives that we're putting forward for this coming voting season in March of 18 is that we're seeking to limit the number of associate judges, hopefully to a percentage. For instance, for every one elected circuit judge, perhaps you can only have 0.2 associate judges. So for every 10 circuit judges, you can only have 2 associate judges. But we do need associate judges. Why? Even though these associate judges are not elected, these judges still can determine very important matters. For instance, let's suppose it's a parking ticket. Let's suppose it's got does not carry criminal sanctions. Let's suppose that what other things? Let's suppose that it's a traffic citation or traffic violation. These matters, which are predominantly a misdemeanor in nature and under $500 in value and fines, these matters can and should be sorted to associate judges, those that are not elected by the voters. Why? They're not accountable to the voters, and that way they don't. We shouldn't trust them with more than these misdemeanor or essentially small ticket items. Now, of course, this is a live interactive show, and I'm welcoming you to call in with your comments, questions, and concerns about how we keep the judiciary in the Circuit Court of Cook County accountable to voters and accountable to the persons who might appear in front of these judges. Let's see. Before I go on, I wanted to remind you that you're watching Green Slate I Incorporated, and this is live on CAN TV Channel 21 and cantv.org hotline. And today's discussion is we're discussing the difference between circuit judges and associate judges. And you're more than welcome to call in and join the discussion by calling us at the number on your screen, which is 312-738-1060. And again, I'm Jan Kowalski, and let me show you my cute little guy one more time. There he is. I've got my koala, and he's having fun, and he's going down skis. And I think we do have a caller. Caller, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for taking my call. Actually, I called in prior to your announcing what the topic would be. I wanted to chime in on this whole question about being an offender and what that means for those people who are accused, who are currently waiting for trial at Cook County Jail, other institutions, and this lack of agency that exists for people in that position. Because the reality is that no one gets elected by saying, I'm out there, campaigning for the rights of offenders. That unfortunately, that's the way our system works. That, no one gets far in American politics by saying that I want to help people accused of crimes. And
Well,
unfortunately,
caller,
people.
let me just take you to task on that. A couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we were joined by LaShawn Ford, and he was proud to indicate to our viewers that he had sponsored legislation in the Illinois legislature that provided it made it easier to get expungement and sealing, and that was one of his proud accomplishments. So I'm going to
Right,
have to disagree that
and
there are
well,
legislatures that are running on platforms that are tied to
right, right, but
ex-convicts.
right, and we need to recognize the context in which he did that. One, he is not trying to allow people to expunge records for serious crimes. Two, Mr. Ford is not a senator or a congressman. He is not a mayor of a major city. It is much easier to introduce that sort of legislation when you represent a constituency that has a large issue with that particular situation. So again, I go back to my original statement. Get very far politically. Being a state representative in the state of Illinois is not making much progress as far as political power. For a governor to do it, I would be very impressed. For a congressman to do it, I would be very impressed at the federal level. But again, Mr. Ford is in a unique position to do it. But doing it on a larger scale, I would challenge that it simply is not something that people tend to migrate towards because, again, it's very easy to be attacked when you put forward that sort of initiative. It makes all the sense in the world from a public policy standpoint because we have people sitting in Cook County Jail who we're paying, depending upon the kind of the crime that they're accused of, 10 times what they are accused of doing. We're paying to incarcerate them on a daily basis for some
Caller,
ridiculously low.
let me echo your concern. I happen to have been in a courtroom in the Bridgeview Courthouse. Of course, that's in the 5th District in Cook County. And one of the defendants that was brought before the bench was a woman who was, let's say, in excess of 50 years of age. And she was a minority, and she had apparently decided to shoplift 3 bars of soap from the local Walmart store. And of course, she was being held in custody. So I completely understand and completely agree with you that there are certain people that should not be in jail. Number one, because of the cost to taxpayers, but just number two, I'm sure there's other social services that we could provide this woman if she needs to steal soap.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's the thing that we need to get across, because it's up to us to demand of our elected officials that they address these issues. We can't wait for them to bring it up because, as I've said, there's a lot of political hurdles to doing so, and you open yourself up to being politically vulnerable because the next person who wants to challenge you for your position can simply say, "Well, this person's not concerned about the well-being of citizens; they're concerned about the well-being of criminals." And unfortunately, it makes you a target. So we need to demand that our elected officials do something to help those who are least able to help themselves. And that includes people who've made mistakes because we've all made those certain mistakes in our lives. And the fact that, we didn't necessarily get caught. How many drunk drivers are on the road every night versus how many people are actually caught drinking and driving. I mean, so we need to have a society in which people are allowed to pay their dues and pay the cost that they owe to society in terms of the crimes that they've committed, but then give them another chance to move forward with their lives. And right now, we don't give people that chance. Instead, we hold them accountable for the rest of their lives, and it follows them. And unfortunately, that's not a way to be productive in a society.
I absolutely agree with you. I think the ex-convict status itself is another form of discrimination. And I'm going to be the first politician out there that's for the rights of ex-offenders. Let me tell you another story. I happened to be working at the expungement sealing clinic, and at that time, a young man came in, and he had just gotten hired by a local hospital to do janitorial services. And I believe he was going to be getting paid $16 an hour, including full benefits, 401k, health insurance, pension. And unfortunately, his background check discovered that he had a offense. And at that point, he came to the expungement clinic. And I don't want to go beyond the scope of the show, but there are available options so that he can work in a hospital and a janitorial staff if it's determined by the Illinois Department of Public Health. But for purposes of this discussion today, I thought it was horrible that this man couldn't get a job to support his family, and a fantastic job as well, all because there's something in his record. So not only does it affect the person, but it also affects the family as well. This man obviously had a wife and children to support. I'm sorry, go ahead, caller.
Yes, we tell people walk the straight line, commit no more offenses, and then a decade or even two goes by, and they've been great people, and yet this sort of cloud still hangs over their heads in a situation such as you're talking about, where something you did 20 years ago and you've been a great person since then prevents you from moving forward in life and having a decent job. Why? Because you got caught with a little bit of marijuana when you were 20 years old, or because you were stupid enough to go for a joyride when you were 18, in a stolen car. I mean, really, how is that an indicator of the kind of person you are at 45? It's not, especially if you have no other record of any criminal behavior in 25 years between the two points in your life. So we need to start being more realistic, more practical about things. We can't just have this sort of one-size-fits-all criminal justice system that says once you've done something wrong, we throw you away, which is what we're doing to people. We're throwing people away in our society and saying, you've made a mistake and that's it. You've got no chance to become a productive member of society again.
Thank you, caller. I absolutely echo your concerns. I think we've got another call. Do we have another call?
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, I wanted to chime in on the offenders and people, ex-offenders and stuff.
Yes, and what's your concern, caller?
Well, my concern is that the way, depending on how the political wind blows, whether it's left or right, right now it's blowing to the right because all we're concerned about is keeping people in jail. We're doing nothing to help them to change their lives in jail while they're in prison. We're not funding, we're adding less funds for re-educating our criminals. And we're putting them in as young as, even at 18, they're still young and developing. Their brains continue to develop until they're 25. And studies have shown that they can still be retrained, but instead, judges, probably associate judges who aren't supposed to try felony cases, are dumping them in prison.
So caller, what do you think the solution is? It seems like a vicious cycle. How do we stop this?
Well, I think we have the only way to stop this. Now, obviously, reforms, election reforms, the gerrymandering cases going on from Wisconsin and the Supreme Court decision. The United States Supreme Court is going to be hopefully changing that. So this redistricting and remapping of areas will stop, so that people can't just change with the prevailing wind. That's what's hurting us. But we have to look to the future, the next generations. We need to help those single mothers. We need to have more things for our children to do and keep them busy, so they don't wind up making the wrong choices.
Well, Colin, I'm dying to know, how do we allocate the funding? Let's suppose we only have so many dollars for social services. Which portion do we give to the single mothers? Which portion do we give to the elderly? And which portion do we give to the offenders?
Well, offenders should be involved, should get something. What we should do is, unfortunately, there's not-for-profits out. Luckily, there's not-for-profits out there that do get either private funding or federal funds that direct their monies to halfway houses where they re-educate and help offenders who come out of prisons. But we have to prepare them before. There are certain states that prepare as soon as they come into jail, depending on their age and depending on the crime. Within 2 or 3 years, they prepare them at different stages so that they can be brought back into society and be ready.
Thank you, caller. I think we have another caller. Do we have another caller?
Hi, Jan. How are you?
Hi, Mr. Sistrunk. How are you tonight?
Great, Jan. Were we able to correspond with Mr. Johnson?
No, I wasn't able to get a hold of him, Mr. Sistrunk.
But the gentleman that you have on is very interesting. Jan, I didn't catch his name.
Oh, I didn't get the caller's name.
Oh, I thought you were talking to him in studio.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm alone in the studio. But it was very interesting, Mr. Sistrunk. What programs do they have in prisons now to assist the ex-convicts before their placed reentry programs?
Dan, listen, that's what's so interesting about this subject, and I'm surprised that you, being a person who ran for Recorder of Deeds once, that you would even want to tackle this issue, because this is a hot button issue right now. Dan, do you realize that ex-offenders in this country are the third political party in the country? You're talking about 50 million voters.
Yes, last numbers I looked at, there were 30,000, is that right? 30,000 inmates released every year in the state of Illinois? Does that sound right?
to those of us, and in my case, I went away 40 years ago, and I'm not saying I'm suffering, but I know how to open up opportunities for myself. But there's been many of ex-offenders. There's a guy running for governor who's an alderman. He said, if you're 50 and 55 years old in jail, get out of here. Get out of here. Go and work for a Boys and Girls Club or something. We got him sitting rotten in jail at $50,000 and $60,000 a year, like Robert Gorovich, for an instance, Jan. And I think you and I disagreed on this one.
We did.
Gorovich, huh?
I believe we did disagree about former Governor Blagojevich, Mr.
But
Sister.
Jan, my point about Gorovich, Jan, was that here's a guy, educated, smart, work experience, charmer, sitting in jail at $180,000 a year, federal money, teaching other inmates how to read when they should have been able to read how to commit a crime. Then they wouldn't have been out there committing crimes where he could be working, helping us solving some of these violent situations, Jan. There's other ways. We need to put Boys and Girls Clubs in these police stations. So if a kid get arrested for marijuana, he go right to the gym and start cleaning up.
There you go. Either that or they can come to the Can TV studios and learn a trade. Believe it or not, I believe Can TV does have training programs.
Listen, I've got to be honest, Jed. This is really reason I called. I wanted to tell you. And the audience, you all look at Jan, and you remember this day and the days that Jan has been on TV. Jan will soar. She will swim. She will go the distance. She will try many cases. She will meet many people. But when they asked, where did Jan Kowalski? Was it a car or was it a Kowalski?
When did I get my big start? This is it.
Her start.
This is the big start.
Where did Jan get her start?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Sister, we have another caller. Do we have another caller? Caller?
Yes, hello?
Hi, yes, do you have a comment, question, or concern about our topic, which is ex-offenders tonight?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, sir.
Okay, listen. What happens if a veteran or anybody else, high school education and never been in trouble a day of his life, but I'm more about the vet because he comes home and he has to worry about fighting against a convict or a release or whatever you call him for a $16 an hour job for him and his family. Now, who do you think should get that job? The ex-offender or the veteran or anybody else that's done right all their life? Thank you.
No, caller, I understand that there have to be sometimes tough decisions can be made, but I think that there's another alternative that really has to be explored. The city of Chicago, we need jobs. Hello, we do not need houses being knocked down. We need houses being built. We don't need projects. We need ex-offenders can build houses. People that have CHA vouchers can live in houses that they own. As opposed to using their voucher to pay rent, their voucher should be able to pay their mortgage. That way they have a stand in the community because they're paying for their house. They're taking care of their house and their community, and they're raising their families and their house, and they know how to take care of their house. And once you have a house and a family, you have a community. Once you have a community, then you have churches, and you no longer have people dealing drugs on the corner. Number one, they don't need to because they have a job building houses. And number two, the people with those families, we don't want drug dealers on our corners. So I think another solution has to be made as opposed to which person do we select for the job. I think the answer has to be we need more jobs. Chicago needs to grow. We need to build houses. We shouldn't be knocking down houses. We need to build them for families. And CHA, if you can hear me out there, please let people use their vouchers to pay their mortgage instead of paying rent. In the future, we will have homeowning families as opposed to a system of renting families. And I'm sorry, I think I'm out of time here, so let me just wrap up. Thank you for watching and participating in today's show. Thank you, all you callers. I appreciate it. I'm Jan Kowalski, and let me show you once again my cute little koala. I love this little guy. There he is. There's the koala on his skis. And tonight we've been discussing ex-offenders and the reentry programs and what Green Slate I offers for its members. Thank you for watching us and joining in the discussion. And tonight, Mr. Sistrunk, our founder and chief executive officer, called in and joined the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Sistrunk. And thank you all, and have a good night. And I will see you again next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Thank you. Good night.